Hey guys, I'm Cordelia. Welcome to this Ondine celebration. My video of Ondine has been my most popular by far on YouTube. I do get quite a lot of comments and questions asking how I play certain passages and how to practice some of the more tricky parts. Ondine, we love her, but she is very difficult to get a handle on. So today's video is going to be all of my technical tricks and secrets and practice methods to show you how to play a really beautiful Ondine. You'll see the mechanics behind those flying fingers that you can see on the videos, and also actually the work that goes into making it sound effortless. So let's dive in. The reason why Ondine is so difficult to play is that we have to conjure this magical, supernatural atmosphere without all of the very awkward figurations getting in the way. So what I'm going to focus on today is technical and practical hacks and tips to allow you to kind of get out of your own way and allow that immortal melody to kind of float by itself without all of the semi-quavers and difficult bits kind of interfering. Disclaimer number one, do not practice everything in one session or you will probably get injured, and that's no use to anyone. Disclaimer number two is I'm using this borrowed upright while we're living in Kenya, and it has quite a heavy action. It's not my first choice for demonstrating Ondine, but I figured since probably quite a lot of you are practicing on an upright, it's only fair if I demonstrate on an upright too. So let's start with bar one. I mean, there's so much to do on bar one. This opening shimmer pattern. So it's very awkward, but there are quite a few ways that you can practice this to get it feeling much more relaxed, and so that you kind of getting the shimmer rather than a kind of, lots of notes. Okay, so first thing, to do the groupings. There's two ways to do the groupings. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I spend a lot of time just getting comfy with that movement. The other grouping is, of course, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the reason that I want to work on both these groupings is that I don't want, when I perform this, to have a kind of strong pattern, a rhythmic pattern to this opening section. It needs to be much more subtle than that. It should be a kind of vague murmuring, not like diddle, 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 diddle. It's not jazzy. I want to be flexible enough to switch between 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So when I'm performing this, I'm kind of constantly switching between the two patterns because it makes it feel like you can't quite get a grip on it as much, which I prefer. I don't want it to be too obvious. So that's the first thing to do, practicing those two groupings to get comfortable. Then you can practice holding down notes, and there's 4 ways to do this. Firstly, holding down the top note, and then so what this is doing is just isolating the different muscle groups, making each of the voices work independently. And then the next one. Then. This is really tricky, this one. And then finally. So what I'm learning from this is it feels really different depending on which note you're holding down. And for me, the easiest version is this one. And that is because my hand can rotate as it needs to, because I've got this kind of pivot in the middle here, and then I can rotate side to side. So that tells me a lot about how I need to play this figure for it to be relaxed, and that is I need to allow this rotation. So the one that I found really difficult was this one, and that's because it doesn't allow any rotation at all. I'm just stuck. And that's why it's so difficult and you get tense straight away. So from that, I know that I need to be having this rotation movement. the arm position I like to have quite high. It's not like super high, but it's enough so that I can kind of allow this to shake loosely. It's not kind of like in a fixed shape, okay? So I've got a couple more tips for this passage, but we will come to those later on when it comes back in G sharp major. Hello. Hi. Are you going up for your nap? Yes. If you hear crying in the film, then it's this one. Right, come on, off you go. Next, the melody. For this, I want it to be super legato. It's like it has to just float by itself with there's no kind of impulse on the notes. So the way I play this, it's a kind of a stroking. Each note I'm lifting out of the key. So I don't want to play pressing down because that sounds way too earthbound, I think. It's too real. I want this allowing it to float out of the piano. And I try to avoid thumbs wherever possible because I think the thumb is too direct. We want this gentle stroking and pulling. So the other thing to bear in mind with this is that it needs to feel like you have all the time in the world. When you first look at this piece, it's demi-semiquavers and it looks like, oh, it's fast. But he actually writes slow, long. And this melody, it needs to feel like there is no rush. It just exists. There's nowhere to go. It's kind of just an immortal song. Okay, so no rushing or pushing. Then, when you put it all together, of course you want balance between the two hands, but I think it needs to go beyond balance. It needs to be like a blend. So the shimmer needs to be kind of within the melody. I hope that makes sense. I'm not really sure how to describe this, but I want it to be, they need to be kind of within each other. I think what it comes down to is not projecting the melody too much. I think it becomes too obvious. If you're really bringing this out, it's a bit crass. You know, it's kind of too romantic. I don't know. It's like, it doesn't sound right for Ondine. It needs to be more subtle. So just to think about that, blending the two hands together. On to bar 14 and 15. I've had so many questions about this passage. It's very tricky, but there is, I think, quite a good solution. I take over in the left hand this little wiggle. So just those two. You can't do it the second time. You can do it the halfway through the bar. So that's on the fourth quaver. You can take over in the left hand, like this. But you can't do the last one because you're playing an octave in the left hand here. So instead, here, I take this D sharp in the right hand. So the bottom D sharp of the octave, I take in the left hand thumb, the right hand thumb, sorry. So I've tried to make that really clear. I'll demonstrate it now properly. It allows space for the hands to move independently. I hope that's clear. So to me, that solves that passage quite well, I think. Hope it does for you. Oh, the other thing to practice on this section is the opening of the hand movement, because it's quite a big stretch. You're kind of opening and closing. That's the thing to practice here. So you want to be gradually preparing, gradually opening the hand. So I want that to feel relaxed, not like a sudden movement to get up to that top note. Okay, bar 16, we get to these demi-semiquavers in the left hand, which need to sound kind of like droplets of water, or, I don't know, like a spray of water, or bubbles, something so delicate. I've actually made a separate video on this, which I'll link above. But I practice in staccato, so... What this does is you get the real lightness of touch. And then when you put it together, so it means you get that very kind of delicate and, I don't know, filigree touch in the left hand. There are lots of other places in the piece where you can use this. I'll point some of them out, but I think anywhere that you find kind of these running demi-semiquavers, staccato is a really good way to practice them. Bar 17, you've got this kind of surge of demi-semiquavers here. So what I think is really interesting about this piece is that it's generally very kind of floating and subtle, but then you have these moments of impulse or interest, and I think this is one of these. So it needs to kind of come out of the texture. So the way I practice this, it needs to be super strong. I mean, to play this, it's quiet, but it needs to be so strong to have that kind of energy in the sound. So I do a thing called adding on, where I do one note by one note. You can hear, it's because it's got that sort of staccato touch as well. It has a real vibrancy to the sound. Bar 22, oh yes, this beautiful run. So again, of course, practice staccato, and you can also do the adding on that I just talked about. We're just aiming for the quietest and most delicate sound that you can possibly get. Oops. But all the notes need to be there. The second tip for this is to divide up the left hand into 3 groups to go with the right hand chords. You've got 3 chords in the right hand. So I do the groupings 8 notes for the first group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The reason I do that is because you've got in bar 23 the spread chord, which you have to fit before the beat. So if you do more notes in the last group of bar 22, you're going to have so many notes to fit in, it's going to sound very forced and it won't sound natural. So by putting the 9 notes earlier in the bar, it's allowing you space to then fit that spread chord. So you don't have a sudden rush right at the end to try and fit in, you know, and the spread chord, which is just never going to sound natural. Bar 23, we've got a new figuration. It's similar to the opening shimmer pattern, but it's split between the 2 hands now. This is actually surprisingly awkward. For some reason, I don't know if it's just me. Please, can you tell me if this happens to you as well? I don't know. But my hands get confused and they both want to play in the wrong places. So to keep that pattern, which is meant to be I actually practice it like that because I'm training my brain to keep up with the pattern and to pay attention. So it's not kind of autopilot. So I'm doing in these kind of blocks, you know, each quaver is a block. And then I'll do a crotchet as a block. Mark in your mind what the pattern is. The other thing that I would practice here is the different voices. So the top voice would be so I'm still splitting between the hands the correct way, but I'm only playing the top voice. Then I could go to the next voice, which would be ooh. That's awkward. Still using the correct fingerings. And then you could do those together. By breaking it down like this into the components, you're really learning exactly what's happening here. And so then when you put the whole thing together, it's not going to be a kind of, I don't know, too much to take in at one time. Final tip is to play within the keys. So we don't want to be coming too far up because it's too loud. It's, let's say, too busy. So because we've got the melody on the top, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but I'm kind of within the key. I'm hardly coming up at all. So it means that you're not having to, you know, make the key work as much. It's just a kind of like this. It takes a lot less energy and it also makes it less loud and busy. Bar 28, again, you've got this swirling left hand that suddenly kind of emerges out of nowhere. Let me see. This is from bar 26. So I want this, it's like a sudden kind of wave or, I don't know, a moment of desire that suddenly appears. To practice that, I would do the same adding on method. So trying to get really strong fingers here. Yeah, the other thing here is the moves in position. So this is quite awkward. You're moving from here to here. I would spend quite a bit of time working on those moves. And then the same thing. So every time your hand has to change position, you need to work on that move. So 2 ways to practice that. You've got the changing positions and then you've got the adding on. And you can probably see I've got quite a sort of hard right touch in my fingertips. And that's how I get that kind of swirling sound. Bar 29, the following bar, there's some rearrangements of the fingering that you can do. If you can see from above, I take that in the right hand, which means that I can hold the B a little bit because I want to keep that harmony, the B7 harmony, but I need to change the pedal on the F sharp for the melody. So that means if I do the fingering as written, I can't change the pedal because I'll lose the B. So by taking the C sharp in the right hand, I can keep the B and I can change the pedal. I also take this last quaver in the left hand. So the whole thing. Right, we are back to this opening shimmer figuration. So I've got a couple more ideas for you. Practice each voice of the chord. So the first voice would be, and then the next voice, and then so the idea of all these methods is to get comfortable with each component part of the pattern so that you've addressed all of the different awkwardnesses of the movement. And then when you put it together, there shouldn't be so many awkward bits in your way. That's the theory, anyway. Next thing is to play it in every key. So here we're in G sharp major. So I go to A major. What this does is you have a totally different hand shape. If you can see, the hand shape here and then the hand shape here are very different. So you're going to have different issues with staying relaxed. And by addressing every key in this way, this is a tricky one. If you can work through the physical barriers to each key, then when you come back to the original one, it's going to seem a lot easier. The other thing that you can learn from this is about what's comfortable for your hand. So for me, actually, the most comfortable version is this one in B major. I just find that a very natural position. All my fingers are kind of in the place that they want to be. That is telling me that this is the kind of shape that I should be aiming for. It's a nice open shape here. There's no kind of crushing together. Like this one's really awkward because I'm crushed together. Luckily, I don't think we have to do that anywhere in the piece. So what I'm trying to imitate, though, when I go back to the original version is this open kind of, it's like a round, almost like a round feeling to my hand. So then I'm trying to sort of imitate that as much as I can in this like roundness of my hand here. Okay, so 2 extra methods, each voice and then every key. I think if you do all of the methods that I've shown you for this bit, you should be seeing some improvement. So because we've got to the end of the first 3 pages, which is kind of like the first section, I wanted to make, I don't know, a higher level comment about the pedalling of this piece. For me, it needs to be very subtle. It's more about a colour, I think, the pedal here. It shouldn't be like down, up, down, up, down. You know, that's much too obvious, I think. I want it to be more of a subtle addition to the hazy feeling that we're getting here. So what that means basically is that I'm doing very shallow pedalling. I don't think you can see my feet, but I'm only going kind of half the way down. That means that when I'm changing the pedal, it's not kind of an abrupt, an obvious change. You know, it shouldn't be like cut and dried like that, I don't think. I want it to be much more kind of blurred, blurring the lines of the harmonies. So that just means that you need to do shallow and subtle pedalling. That's it. Bar 37 to 40, to get the distinction between those 2 voices, the intensity of the melody, but then the lightness of the inner decoration. So the way that I practice this is the inner part is staccato. So to get that lightness. Oops. So we're practicing with the weight going through the melody, but then very light here. So what that should do is to kind of get the independence of the 2 lines. This one, and then where are we? In bar 39, it's very difficult to do this kind of arpeggio while also sustaining the line. So I actually rearrange here, again, the fingering. I take these in the left hand, the last two. And then I take the octave, again in the left hand. So these are both in the left hand. The reason I think this is really helpful is that you can get the octave melody instead of trying to sort of change hands in the middle of it, which is nearly always going to make a bump. Also not getting in your way with trying to do the arpeggios and the melody octave, the octave melody at the same time. Basically, I'm trying to simplify the octave melody to sustain that line. Bar 42. Okay, we have a new figuration in the right hand. It's actually not that tricky, I think. But what I'm interested in here is this kind of sparkling bit. I think this kind of emerges out again, like a little, I don't know, a spray of sea, sea wave. So I'm really working my fingertips here. Again, I would work staccato and I would work adding on. But the crucial thing is that you need it to kind of then disappear back into the calm figuration. So to do that, practice from the last two practice from the last two notes of the bar, which is this. So you're practicing that joining. You don't want to have perfect and then have a sudden, I don't know, jolt or break when you try and go back into the next bar. So to practice the join is really important. Bar 44 here, this très doux in the right hand, very sweet. For sure, practice staccato. That should be so quiet. I think it's probably the quietest thing that you've played so far. It's just magic. I probably would also do the adding on, just to, be thorough. Okay, so bar 45. Oh yes, sorry, bar 46. This, for some reason, is extremely awkward, more awkward than the other versions where it comes in other keys. So this one, you've got C major with an A flat. So this right hand is so awkward. I mean, the stretch, for me at least, I don't know, for my hand, is awful. It's really not nice. So for a while I was playing this just kind of with a flexible wrist, just about managing, but it's really doesn't work that well. So now I'm doing a little cheat, which is taking this in the left hand. So just to make that clear. Now, the crucial thing here is to not play it like a left hand note, because the left hand here has got this kind of rising arpeggio melody. It's not really a melody, but it's melodic. So we don't want to have, because that would just be incredibly ugly. So it needs to sound like the same as the right hand. So it's very light. And I'm holding the thumb, just the same legato, as if I wasn't playing that extra G. So what it looks like slowly is this. This means you don't have to have that awkward stretch, and you can start again each time on a 3, which is much more comfortable. Let's see if I can do it properly for you. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's as good as you're going to get it. So yeah, I do recommend that actually. I think it's a good discovery. In bar 49, again, we've got très doux, very sweet. For some reason, very in the way. I mean, if you try to play the C on top, you're going to be absolutely just crushing your hands. So I would recommend, once you've played the top with your right hand, you kind of sneak the left hand under for that one, because then you're free to play the right hand in a relaxed way. Okay. And then again, that's the same staccato and adding on work to get this. I would take that on the right hand as well. When we get to bar 52, we come to, I think, a very important moment. It's kind of the calm before the storm. You know, we're just about to come into this big build-up towards the climax. But here, it's so, I don't know, it's so simple and poignant somehow. But it still has this slight feeling of unease under the surface. It's like the harmonies have this intensity to them. So... I just think it's an incredibly beautiful passage, that. Unfortunately, it's also very awkward to play. This is something that I've had questions about as well. Tricky thing is to get the melody, which is split between the hands, so you need to have that perfect melody in legato, even though you're playing it with the hands alternating, and you've got all of this rubbish going on, going all over the place. So it's nearly impossible to play legato. So I've got a tip. Firstly, practice just isolating the melody, like I just showed you. So you know what you're aiming for. It should be absolutely perfect, you know, beautiful shaping, exactly how you want it to be. Get that perfect first. Then we can add in the other parts. The really crucial thing here that I've found that really helps me is to hold the thumb to the next melody note. I hope that makes sense. So hold, and then it's kind of legato to the next melody note. Hold. So if you can see, I'm holding legato. Hold. Hold. What that does is, instead of just flying around all over the place, you've got this kind of anchoring point in your thumb, and you're almost imitating the legato that you need to play. So it means that when you play the right hand notes, you're playing them as if they are joined to the left hand melody notes. It's very complicated. So let me just try and demonstrate it. I can't join them because I have to get my left hand back to its position down here. So instead we have to pretend that we're joining them. hope that makes sense, that I'm kind of making myself think that it's legato and making the audience think that it's legato. It's not actually, but I'm playing it as if it is, so I don't have any bumps. I'm trying to avoid bumps every time I put my right hand down. So I find this super helpful, and it's a bit complicated at first, but I think once you get the hang of it, it really transforms this passage. So I would definitely give it a go. The next thing to do is to add in each hand with the melody. So firstly, the melody with the left hand, maybe. So we're still trying to keep that perfect shape, but with the left hand, and then you can do it with the right hand figuration. There you go, you've got three tips for that bit. Okay guys, I think we're going to have to break this into 2 episodes because I've got very excited and talked loads. I don't want us all to get Ondine overload. So next time we will continue with the big build up into the climax, which I have got so many tips for, so you do not want to miss that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe for more videos, and so that you don't miss the follow-up to this Ondine video next week. I will see you then. Bye bye.